Hello and welcome to this episode of How to Love Successfully with me, Dr. Mari Kovanen. I'm a registered psychologist and a conscious dating coach. And today we will have another wonderful guest, Anna Mizera. Hello and welcome, Anna. We actually go way back, so it's so lovely to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, it's lovely. Thank you for having me.
And so let me tell you a little bit about her. So Anna is a mindfulness and meditation teacher that brings people closer to calm whilst reducing anxiety, stress, daily overwhelm, and depression. She teaches how to quieten the scattered overactive and find moments of peace and simple joy in everyday chaotic life. So how wonderful to have this conversation about mindfulness. And we'll be talking about what mindfulness is, why that is important when we are talking about dating and relationships. First of all, many people might have heard it and might be even practicing, but there are, I think, still quite a lot of people who may be confused about it.
Yeah. I think there's quite a lot of misconception about mindfulness as well. So yeah, that's a great question. So mindfulness is really the simplest way to describe it is bringing your attention and focusing on one thing at one particular time, doing it on purpose, which means bringing awareness to it. So you're actually aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And the biggest element in that is actually trying to leave the judgment behind. Mm-hmm. So when we're focusing on, it could be something physical, like, probably the most famous and well-known example is drinking tea or going for a walk. Is you're actually drinking tea without thinking about anything, and you're focusing on drinking tea, the flavors, you engage your senses in that, a little ritual. So you taste, you smell, you touch, whether that's a cup, and you experiencing that tea and you're drinking it like you were doing it for the very first time without any judgment, a little bit like a child experiencing something, seeing something and tasting something the very first time. And that helps leaving that judgment aside because you are just exploring it with curiosity. And mindfulness can be practiced. There are sort of two types. And the one that is usually discussed in all the magazine is the informal mindfulness, which is what I just described with drinking the tea. And you can then practice mindfulness going for a walk with your dog, or you can practice mindfulness having a bath or a shower, or even brushing your teeth. And there's another side of mindfulness, and that's the mindfulness that I usually teach. And that's that side of mindfulness that helps us with what you mentioned at the beginning with our mental well-being, with anxiety, overwhelm, reducing stress, is this formal side of mindfulness, which is a mindfulness meditation. Mm-hmm. And that's usually where you need, if you want to embark on that journey, you need a little bit of guidance, a bit of teaching to know how to journey through that, to get to where you want to be, basically. So these are the two types of mindfulness. Obviously, when someone's talking about mindful living is pretty much combining the two. That what brings the biggest change and transformation in people's lives.
And so how did you get into this? How did you get interested in mindfulness and then became a mindfulness teacher?
So my journey with mindfulness started probably around 10, 11 years ago now. I discovered it. It was sort of discovering it bit by bit. So it wasn't just what we usually call love at first sight. It was kind of exploring and trying different things. But I got into it for my own personal practice because I needed something to help me in my huge emotional turmoil that I was going through at that time. Within the space of 3 months, we lost our first son and I got cancer diagnosis. So my anxiety was skyrocketing. I was slipping into a depression. So the mood changes, the uncertainty, the stress, the overwhelm of everything that was going around, and also grief.
Yeah.
I think, everyone experienced grief to a certain extent, whether that was close family, even losing a pet can be a traumatic experience. So I just needed something that would help me to get my emotions and my mental well-being just to find myself again. I was lost. I was completely broken. I was lost. So I discovered mindfulness, and it was just first I was discovering a few elements. 10, 11 years ago, mindfulness wasn't as popular, I would say, as it is now. So I started practicing gratitude. I started just all those elements that sort of bring mindfulness together. And that helped me a lot. And then after a little while, I come across a meditation and I started practicing meditation. And meditation was that one element that actually brought the biggest transformation again, the biggest change. That's where I found the calm. That's where I found myself again, that sort of, rediscovering of, who I am, what I want, what I need. And then, so, like everyone else, I was on and off mindfulness. So we all struggle with consistency with whatever we're doing, whether that's, gym exercises, running, whatever it is. And I got into teaching. That was short after the pandemic. Again, the emotions and people's mental well-being was so, it was so difficult. That time was so difficult for so many people, including myself. I found myself in going backwards and forwards with different emotions, feelings, thoughts. And it was just that one day that I was like, I have all those tools. I know mindfulness. I know how to do it. Why am I not doing it? So I started practicing again, which changed everything dramatically in a way, the way I experienced with my family, the way we experienced pandemic, it was completely different to what I could observe within my friends, and obviously what media was reporting and what was happening on social media. And that made me train as a teacher, because I thought if that can help me in such a major way, and I had all those years of practice as well, I just needed to learn how to actually teach it and how to pass it on to somebody else, because that's, practicing it and doing it yourself is completely different than actually trying to guide someone and teach them and what sort of ways to. There's a lot of psychology in there as well. But so after pandemic, I trained as a mindfulness meditation teacher, and I've been practicing, teaching since the last year and a half. I think the time goes by so quickly. I don't really know. I would have to check. But it's been fascinating journey so far.
And then I can't remember who said that, but actually the best way to learn yourself is to teach someone else, because that resonates so much with me, the inconsistency. And when it comes to practicing, I think there's this internal resistance that we grapple with. It's like, okay, I know that it would be good for me, but, I need to put a little bit of effort to actually and create certain maybe routines or something, but then whatever feels more comfortable at that point, and we kind of slip off the wagon in some ways, and it can be really tricky. And I suppose, has that helped for you then to, when you're teaching, to kind of become more sort of even focused on that?
You're absolutely right. I think the consistency is the key to actually see the transformation within yourself that you want to. And just through the last 10-year journey, I can see exactly where I was consistent with it. It was really changing, and I was really experiencing my life completely differently. But because the way I discovered mindfulness was pretty much, I didn't do any course at that time. It wasn't so widely available as it is now. I was kind of discovering it all myself, reading books and what I could find online on social media at the time. Whereas right now, you've got all those things, all those tools and all those things available. And also what has been discovered throughout those years is that the best way for anyone to get to the place where they want to be is to practice it for anything between 6 to 8 weeks. And that's usually when you work with me, that's what I base my sort of teaching practice. So we go through different meditations as we go through different sessions in the space of 6 to 8 weeks, just to establish the habit, because that's what we need is to get that meditation into a habit. So it becomes a natural thing rather than, treating it as another thing to tick off on our to-do list or something that I still have to do.
Yeah.
I still need to do. It's something that I want to do.
Yeah.
Because it makes me feel better. It makes me feel calmer. It makes me feel all those beautiful things that we want to feel. So, and you don't need 6 to 8 weeks to feel better. You feel the outcome, the transformation, the changes. You feel so much sooner than that. But it's been scientifically proven that you need this 6 to 8 weeks time to actually establish some sort of habit. So it sticks. It sticks to your dog, When I let you go after 8 weeks, you're just not going to go back to your old ways. There's going to be this little thing that you'll just carry on with.
So, of course, it helps with anxiety, mental state. But when we're talking about whether it's dating or relationship, how can mindfulness help someone who is now either looking for, maybe thinking about dating or in the kind of early stages of a relationship, or even in a more kind of established relationship already?
What
sort of benefits?
Well, I would say that there are, in terms of relationships, there's one relationship that should always be at the front of our mind. And that's the relationship that we have to nurture every day. And that's the relationship that we've got with ourselves. That's the relationship that is probably the most important one.
Yeah.
And once you have a good relationship with yourself, then you will be most or more successful in any other relationships. And we're not talking only about romantic relationships with a partner or a husband or a boyfriend. We're also talking about friendships and other relationships that require the same amount of effort and the same amount of ingredients to make it successful. And that's the really important relationship that you have to sort of nurture. But also mindfulness as one part is also this mental well-being improvements and help. But also, while you're going along this journey of mindfulness, you also go through a lot of self-discovery. So you because mindfulness is awareness, really. So if you become aware of, who you are, what you want, what you need, you almost leave this people pleasing and the elements of I'm trying to please somebody else and I'm trying to become the person that the other person wants me to be.
Yes.
Or we have all those expectations that we're trying to meet or be a certain way, whether that's the way we look or the way we behave or the way we speak. And through mindfulness, really, it helps to be true to yourself. It helps to discover who you are. As I said, what you want, what you really want. It's not what the world wants from you, what is expected from you, but what you want. is becoming aware of, if you're feeling uneasy, what do I need right now?
Mm.
Do I need to rest? Do I need to relax? Do I need to have a bubble bath if that's your self-care? Or do I have to just sit down and read a book? Or maybe I want to go out and, to the cinema and see a movie all by myself and feel okay with it just because I feel like it, I want to do it. So it's kind of mindfulness. I would say that's this relationship, and that's the kind of like a pre-dating or even the dating. When you date, you almost already walk in some sort of relationship before you, obviously, it progresses to anything else. But going for a date, you already creating some sort of connection with another person. So I would say that mindfulness would help you to love yourself, understand yourself, be true to yourself, accept yourself, understand and believe that you are good enough the way you are, just the way you are. So when you go on a date, whether the date is going to be successful or not, you're not going to come back home and feel bad about it, because you're going to this self-acceptance and knowing your worth, knowing who you are, knowing what you want. And if you go for a date and the date is a complete waste of time, because it could happen, then you come home and said, well, you kind of, it's easy to let it go. Instead of looking for faults within yourself, because that's what we usually do, is, oh, what have I done? Oh, maybe it was the dress that I wore, or, or something that I said, or, and you're trying to almost remake yourself for another date, or you could completely, lose faith in dating and stop doing it altogether. But it is accepting yourself, believing in yourself, and having this confidence in being true to yourself and going out with that will attract the right person, and that will attract but somebody else that will say, oh, actually, I like this girl, because she's, they do know whether you're pretending or not. There is this flow of energy. And sometimes when you go for a date and you meet a guy and something is off, this kind of expression, something was off. This off thing is the energy. He might be pretending to be somebody else that he's not. And you can feel it, or you might not be completely true to yourself. And I think when you start dating, being yourself is the most important element. Not seeking acceptance from somebody else, not seeking, some admiration or something to say you are amazing. Because you have to know that you're amazing. And there's going to be, the relationship, the connection that you start building on those true grounds, or those honesty grounds, where you have the connection of two people that know who you are, accept who they are, and they feel comfortable in their own skin. That's a completely different relationship. It's a completely different, you almost create a foundation for something. It might not progress to anything else. There's no guarantee, but at least the foundation is that you might become amazing friends. It might not progress to a romantic relationship, but you might connect and become a really great friend, which is, again, it's another relationship that we as humans, we kind of should have some friendship connections as well, because they do support us and help.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is such an important message. And I think how, as women, often we've been brought up to kind of always look at the other and what does he think about the other's need. And many women go out there, and it may be that there's always kind of looking at what the expectations of the world will be, or my family, or, all of that, and losing themselves really. And it's exhausting trying to be this person who you really are not, and trying to mold yourself to be someone who you're not. And then if you meet someone when you're trying to pretend to be who you're not really, that's just a recipe for disaster. So I really love your message and how important it is to know yourself, and how mindfulness really allows you to do that, is to become curious about yourself and start to really ask those questions like, what do I want? What do I need? What kind of relationship do I want? And if those are not clear for you, then you are maybe looking for something or someone who is not the right person for you at all. So absolutely. So I really love this message and how important it is to first turn the focus on yourself before you turn the focus on outside, really.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is the path to some sort of success. I'm not a dating expert, but yeah, that's that you can't, there are so many relationships that they went into a relationship for not the wrong reasons, but the foundations wasn't out there.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of miscommunication, there's a lot of misinterpretation, and there's a lot of things that come out from this because they went into a relationship not being themselves. They were pretending to be.
Absolutely. And most people go into relationships, what I call is like this autopilot state, where it's just like, okay, I'll start dating and that's that, without having this real deep kind of connection and awareness of yourself. And that's just, I don't know, it's like throwing a stone somewhere and hoping for the best you catch something. But if the foundation starts from you, really, as a person, and then like what you were saying, that when you know yourself, you know what you want and what your worth is, then you set standard. Because I think that's a problem for many women, and not setting high enough standard. And I guess it's this belief in some ways that I have to be something that I'm not, and accept maybe behavior from the other person that is really not good at all, because you've not become clear and accepting yourself first. So it's such an amazing tool, really, to focus on yourself. So what about if we talk about your personal relationships with your husband, for example? Have you noticed your relationship changing as you become more consistent? Obviously, you started initially by helping yourself, but has mindfulness helped your relationship with your husband too? And how long have you been together? Have you been for a long time?
That's a good question, actually. We had our wedding anniversary recently. So we've been married for 14 years. But we've been together this year. November is going to be 20 years.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really quite it sometimes comes as a shock when you think about it, because, when you live your life happily, you don't count those years. It's only from this anniversary to anniversary, suddenly realize how many years it's been. What I would say in terms of our relationship, and that's what I've noticed with my own mindfulness practice and the journey that I'm on, but also noticing and the reflections from the people I work with, my clients, is that what mindfulness does is, although I can be working only with one client, so that one person might be coming for the sessions and learning mindfulness and practicing meditations, and although the changes happen within themselves, what they do notice is the whole, for example, if they have a family, home, children, whether with their partner, the whole energy changes, and the home becomes calmer. And then they come back to my session saying that, somehow everything's just calmed down, and it's kind of, it flows better. And it's the same with romantic relationships. What I have noticed is, I think it came from me. Well, I'm certain it came from me. It's our communication changed. The way we communicate, but also it started with me because I could, if there was something wrong or if there was an issue, okay, let's say it how it is. Relationship, it's not sunshine and roses every single day. Relationship is always work in progress. There are things that you have to, and communication is the basic things that you have to figure out. How to communicate and how to have an honest conversation and how to tell what you want to pass on that message without making someone feel guilty or without blaming, which is pretty much the same thing. Because sometimes the way we say things, we might mean completely different thing, but the other person will take it like, you're blaming me about this. There's so much in the relationships when this communication is full. There's so many arguments and so many misunderstandings and misinterpretation, miscommunication. There's so many of those things that can really shake up the relationship. And that's why those couples, sometimes the couple therapy can help, because that's where people sit down and they can actually communicate through another person what they really want to say. So this is something that helped me through my awareness and mindfulness. I could convey and I could pass on and express my thoughts in a better, clearer way. So much clearer. And it saved so many arguments. And that really, really helped. And also another thing is listening to each other. And listening again to what the person is saying, instead of actually listening and already adding the meaning and all they're already changing the whole conversation, because that's what we do in our head. Is a person is saying one thing, but our mind is already interpreting it and it's already adding 5 different meanings to what he or she said to us. So actually hearing, listening and focusing on that person, on my husband when he's trying to tell me something, is actually, what is he trying to tell me? What is it that he's saying? And if you're not sure, asking the right questions as well. Without, again, getting into an argument. Great listening skills. And listening without analyzing, without engaging your mind too much, just listening. Yes, honest communication. And the things as well not to take personally, because we take so many things personally. What's been done, what's been not done, what's been forgotten, what's been said, all those things we take so personally. But sometimes just, again, asking the right questions, but also trying to see things through his eyes, is trying to see things through his perspective. Because, I'm dealing with another human being who's got completely different personality to me. And that's a fact. We are completely different. Completely different personality. He's got completely different day experiences. He's got a different job. He's got, different situations with different people. And we bring those things back. So seeing this in a kind of more compassionate way as well. And whatever happens, it's not taking a personality. Maybe waiting for him or myself to cool off a little, because we need that time as well to kind of calm down, to be on our own. And that's mindfulness is, again, is this self-awareness when you need to step back and have a bit of time on your own. Have that time on your own without someone invading your space. Whether to meditate or just sit down and then sit with your thoughts or listening to music, whatever you want to do, but be on your own. So you can recharge. So we give each other that space as well. Yeah, so many things. I think we've grown so much together as well, and we keep growing together. There's so much more love, compassion, and understanding to each other, to what we want and what we need as well. And there's more meeting halfway. Whereas in the past, it was always a little bit like, pulling in each side, and who's going to be the better person? Who's going to win? Who's right? I was always like, who's right? Who's wrong? All those situations. Whereas now we kind of meeting halfway. And that's, again, that time to cool off, the communication, the honest conversations, the deep listening, the careful listening to what actually the other person wants to say. Yeah. And what we try to do, and I would probably advise that to everybody, because the way we live right now is we never go anywhere without our phones. Okay, so that is something I want to address, because no one's talking about it, but it's a huge issue for friendships, for relationships, for marriages, for children, the family issues, is to have time phone free. And whether you just go on your phone for reading the news or for social media, or whether your phone is your work, just having that time when you put it away for an hour or 2 hours, even, you're going to be, all honestly, I promise nothing's going to happen within those 2 hours. Or put it on silent, put it on the flight mode, and just put it away, and just have that time where you're actually mindful with somebody that you're with.
Yeah.
Or if you're going for a dinner date with, whether that's with your husband or with your friend, put the phone away, leave it in your handbag. Don't take it out on and put it on the table. Leave it in your bag. It's one of those things as well, because again, mindfulness is awareness. And at some point we've noticed that this is like, wow, sometimes we are together, but we're actually not together, because our eyes are on phones, our minds are somewhere else. So, and that's not creating any connection. It's actually creating disconnection.
Absolutely.
And what we see on those phones, what we read, can affect our moods as well. And then the mood was being transferred to a child or a husband or a partner or a boyfriend or a friend. So it's kind of being aware about the phones. I still use phone. You use phone, like we still.
Yeah.
The technology is only going to go ahead. It's only going to get more advanced, and that's fine. That's the world that we live. It's kind of being mindful about it. It's being aware of why you go on social media and what you do with your phone and how long you do it and who is this affecting. So we do as a couple is we try to put the phones away and have that time as well where we are actually present for each other without, the distraction of the phones.
Yeah. That is, I think that is the key thing in any relationship, really, is that we are often so distracted and not mindfully present and really kind of seeing the presence of the other person. We are ships passing in the night and not in the here and now, hearing. And what you were saying about becoming better at listening, not just hearing words, that like really listening. What is the other person trying to communicate to me? What is important for me to understand where they are right now? And that is so important. We could go on and on and on talking about this, but to bring it together here, what are your sort of relationship top tips maybe that you want to say to someone who is curious about mindfulness and increasing mindfulness in their life and relationships and so on?
So obviously I could have top tips for before the dating time for self-discovery, but also for relationships. So what I will do is I will talk about relationships as such, because when we're talking about relationships, it's not necessarily the romantic one. We've got relationships with our parents, with our siblings, with our friends, with our colleagues at work. So all those are relationships as well that affect us in one way or another. So my 5 sort of tips, mindful tips, would be what I've mentioned, really just based on my even experience in my own relationship, is to think before you speak. And that's what mindfulness really helps you. So it allows you this kind of mental space. So you respond to something instead of snapping or reacting to it. And that's where you actually think before you speak, because our words affect other people. They affect us, but they affect other people. So this is the big one. And I think that is something that I've noticed has changed a lot of things within me as well. And the way I communicate with my children and with my husband and everyone else. The second one would be, again, the deep listening, the actual listening. There are so many exercises and practices that you can do for deep listening and actually to learn how to listen. I know it might sound funny, but many people can't listen. They hear the words, they look like they pay attention, but in their mind, they're already somewhere else, or they're actually not fully present. So yes, deep listening to the person, having the eye contact with them, giving them attention, the full attention of that conversation, whatever situation you have. The third one, I would say, was based on mindfulness, being open-minded, bringing this awareness, so having those eyes and mind wide open, which really means seeing things through people's eyes and also through their perspective. So having this understanding, not only looking through your own lens, is trying to bring this understanding to the relationship and why people do things the way they do. Because it's not only it's not only about us. It's us, yes, but also there are different things happening in people's lives. Having those eyes and, mind wide open and seeing things through the perspective. Nurturing the connections. That's important. And it doesn't matter what relationship it is. It's nurturing the connection. Putting the phones away, making the time for the person, whether that's a coffee date or a dinner or a lunch or a walk, or, if it's with a child playing a game, or, it's just making this pocket of time where you are completely present with the other person. And that what will nurture the relationship. And the fifth one is pretty much what I've mentioned, is putting the phones away, being aware of that, to putting devices away and being present without distractions. That's what I would say. The top
Beautiful.
5.
I mean, if one starts to practice all of those, I think your life will change in so dramatic ways.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
everything will change. Thank you so much for
Absolutely.
those. So what would be the best way to get in touch with you if now someone thought, okay, I need help with becoming more mindful? How can one contact you and get in touch with you or learn more about you?
Well, they can go to my website, which is annamizera.mindfulness.com, and just message me through there. Otherwise, I'm on Instagram under Anna Mizera Mindful Transformations. And yeah, my email address, hello@annamizera.com. So all those ways, I also do taster sessions that can be done online. So it doesn't have to be in person, just bear this in mind. We are in a world of technology right now. So if you're not local to me, then we can run sessions online. And you can, through my website, actually, you can book the taste sessions and just see if mindfulness and mindfulness meditation is something for you.
Well, we'll put all of those details in the show notes so that then if you were listening and you didn't get all of those details, then you can find them in the show notes. And so it'll be easy to then go through the link and find to that. Thank you so much. And it has been such a lovely conversation with you. And I'm sure we'll continue again offline then to have many more conversations about mindfulness in the future. And thank you for listening. Anyone who's there, and go on, check out Anna's website and everything that she's got going on for her.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. Yes, it was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. And bye. Bye for now.